This is Gateway City Sports.
It's a trap!
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
This is the Team of Rivals podcast.
Everything you want to hear from the big sports to the big screen.
He's all by himself, fires into the end zone. Caught! Touchdown! No! Vaughn into the windup in his first offering. Just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed.
He doesn't like you. I don't like you either.
Time winding down. Michael for three. Yes! She is gone!
I don't believe what I just saw.
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy! You believe in miracles?
You may fire when ready.
What?
Hey there, Cubs and Cardinals fans. It's been a while, probably about a month. Welcome to the Team of Rivals podcast. We're recording this, a rare Sunday recording, February 18th. Yeah, we took some time off, but we imagine that you did too, because absolutely nothing has been happening in baseball. And that's why we decided to jump on a Sunday night, because if nothing's going to happen in baseball, then we're going to talk about it. You can follow us on social media, Team of Rivals Pod. And for those of you who prefer to watch the show, we also like to post to YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. So hit the like and subscribe buttons there and be sure the notifications are on so that you know anytime we post new content. Let's get right into it. Joining me for this week's show, co-founder of TOR and number 151 in the 2023 edition of C70's Top Cards on Twitter, Ron Nuttall. And joining us as a call-in this week, unwilling to drop his title. So even though he can't get his laptop to work, got his phone to work, permanent occasional guest host, Elliot Dewey. Gentlemen, it's been what, 4 or 5 weeks. How you doing?
Doing well, all things considered. I do give Elliot a lot of credit tonight for, booting up the iPhone to call into the show. Although he hasn't turned his camera on, because I'm not sure if he's got us in his pocket and he's out taking a walk or what's going on here. But he was with us on Thursday when we couldn't get things working. Amazingly enough, we still run into issues like we did like 7 years ago, where audio on one end just isn't working. Nobody wants to hear about this. Nobody cares. We haven't been around for a month, so they didn't miss anything. It is rare on a Sunday night, but the kids don't have school the next 2 days. So here I am, booting it up on a Sunday. And Pete, to your point, we haven't done this. We haven't felt motivated enough to do this over the last 4 weeks, because there hasn't been a ton of things to really dissect or break down. And in fact, am I nuts, or do you guys feel the same? That I'm just in this place now where if spring training was 2 or 3 months away, I think I'd be okay. How do you feel about that? Are you in the same place or not quite?
Yeah, actually, and it was something that I was thinking about as I was mentally preparing for this all day. Actually, I was anticipating you sending me the invite.
Let's just face it, we were all. Am I the one that's going to text? Are we going to do the show tonight? Am I going to wait for somebody else to do it?
No. I was fully on board for it. My table's been set up here since Thursday. Okay. I was waiting for you to confirm your interest in doing a show. No, so here's the question I wanted to ask you guys. And I fully reserve the right to be wrong on this one, but is this finally the year that Scott Boras has overplayed his hand?
Oh man, I don't know. We've said it before. I think
there's no way to judge it until these last 4 free agents sign. But I mean, if any of and I don't think this is collusion. I really don't. This doesn't feel like collusion. This feels like the market saying, we're not going to play your game this time. So the Yankees went out and traded for Juan Soto. Mm-hmm. The Blue Jays have been making additions on the margins. The Giants have made a number of smaller signings. Like all these teams have taken themselves out of his market because they didn't want to play his game. And yeah, some of his guys have signed, right? Rhys Hoskins got a minor deal in Milwaukee, but Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, Cody Bellinger, Matt Chapman, they're all still out there, and there's no indication that this is going to end anytime soon.
Yeah, we lost him, but he's coming back. Hold on. He's in the waiting room. Let me let him back in. He is all over the map tonight. We'll have to repeat your question, I think, for him. But is this the year that Scott Boras has played his hand, Elliot, since you're just joining us again? We'll give you a chance to answer that in a second. Pete, I thought that process for him started in 2018, really with the Bryce Harper deal, right? Because he took him really late in the offseason. And while he got a pretty sizable deal, I think we all expected more. Like, I don't think any of us thought it was going to get that late into the game. And I don't recall, maybe you do, a ton of teams in on that. It seems like teams at that point were like, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to make I'm going to go straight to, call it plan B or C, and not stretch this out into late January, even into February. And while he got a sizable deal, I just have to think, like, Philadelphia really, is that what he had in mind? Did he have a 10-year, $300 million contract in mind? Was that the marks? I felt like it was going to be a little bit bigger and a little bit more grand, and it wasn't that. So I think it goes back to then, Pete.
I wonder if the Dodgers landing Yamamoto and Ohtani threw a wrench into his plans, but that happened so early in the offseason that he should have been able to pivot from that, right? He should have been able to see that was one big market team that was off you think about it, right? Yamamoto, Ohtani, Soto, those happened really early. That took two of the biggest players off the field.
Yeah.
The Mets have never really seemed to be interested in any of the guys that Boras represents. You would think that he would have changed his tactic, because Jed Hoyer is not going to bid against himself. I think that he learned a lesson from the mistake with Jason Hayward, and they didn't even have the top bid on Hayward. So if you think that you're going to get Hoyer to bid against himself, you're mistaken.
But I think a lot of teams have either seen peers, meaning other executives, like, make these mistakes, or they've had a few of them themselves, and they're just not going to do it again. Let's take Jordan Montgomery, for instance, right? Nice pitcher. I mean, he performed really well in the postseason. He was the only, like, you'd call it sure thing that the Cardinals had in the front half of last year. But how many people look at him as a stopper, as that ace, when the Yankees didn't? Clearly, they traded him for, Harrison Bader, basically. I just don't think you're going to see this monster contract for guys like that. And gosh, getting in this, spring training start. Why has it been a more common thing now? Spring training starts, pitchers, catchers report, and you still have like 4 or 5 decent guys, a couple aces that are still unsigned, and then they go, late into spring training like this. I don't know if it's so much that maybe he's the one that's failed to adapt and the rest of the league has. That's could be another thing that we're kind of witnessing here.
I mean, I honestly think that that's why it feels too early for spring training, is because there are a couple of major free agents out there, and normally in any other offseason they would have been signed by now. And this doesn't, right? This is not 22 when there was, negotiations going on and you weren't getting guys signed. That this is different.
This hurts the most are like the guys making MLB The Show 24. They're like, fuck, would you just finalize the roster so I can get this job done? Exactly. Or like the guys from Topps. Imagine if this kind of thing happened in the 80s when they were trying to make the team sets that, that come out that year, and like, oh, would you please get on with it? Everybody just go where you're supposed to so I can, paint the A's uniform over your old Pirates uniform so we can get on with life. And in the digital age, I guess they're an advantage these days over prior, but I don't know. It's become all too common. Boras is going to have a handful of clients that are still unsigned as we head into spring training, and they'll sign somewhere you didn't expect, probably won't get what we all thought they would, and they'll start the year off cold, late. They're going to arrive to camp late. Oh, but they weren't working out, and they've been throwing to college kids.
Best shape of their life.
Best shape of their life.
Right. I don't know. What do you think, Elliot? Do you think that Boras has overplayed his hand finally?
100%.
I think him waiting this long has put him into a corner. And now, especially since all the teams that were interested in his clients have said, fuck it, we'll make different moves, and have gone out and gotten other people to fill those roles, because Boris's unwillingness to negotiate a fair deal or in good faith. You know, he hasn't moved off of his asking price for any of his clients, and all of his clients are sitting at home when they should be on the field with their respective team.
Yeah, so, and I kind of wonder. Go ahead. They're gonna get a lower amount of money than they would have if they would have signed 6 weeks ago, and they're gonna get a lower amount of years than they would have if they would have signed 6 weeks ago. So I kind of wonder if his monopoly on the top end of the market this time around hasn't actually hurt. You would think otherwise, and maybe early on it did, but I kind of wonder if it hasn't hurt some of his clients, right? Like Chapman and Bellinger are both theoretically targets for the Cubs, but they're probably only going to sign one. So is he trying, is he trying to inflate a potential contract offer for Chapman, for example, from the Cubs in order to blow up Bellinger's contract? Because really, ultimately, he knows that that's the best fit for the Cubs, and because that's where Bellinger wants to go, but he's not willing to accept a short-term offer, a 4-year deal with 2 opt-outs in it, where the guaranteed money, if he gets it all, is, I don't know, $120 million.
Yeah. I don't know this agent player dynamic, how this works out. How much control does an agent actually have? And I don't know,
I think they have as much control as the player allows them to have. And then I think eventually the player, in this situation, I think the players are going to have to step in and say, get a deal done now.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to go, here's my floor. And if you don't even negotiate to the floor, he's like, then whatever. So, I mean, and I think it's harder for Boris to do that because he sees himself as the super, the super agent.
And it's hard to imagine too, when some of the unsigned they've already made a lot of money in their career, or at least the last couple of years. And they're not like, it's not like they're hurting. But there is a lot of money on the table, obviously at stake, in a free agency year that these guys have. So I don't know. I only know how I feel. And I would feel the pressure that I need to be in camp. But again,
I'll tell you, if I'm Cody Bellinger, the last thing that I want is for Pete Crow Armstrong and Michael Busch to take the field and to start working it out in spring training, because every day that they're on the field is another day that they get to impress Jed Hoyer, they get to impress Craig Counsell, and the front office says, we don't need Cody Bellinger.
Yeah, look,
and I don't want to take if Chicago's where I want to go, I don't take that chance.
Well, imagine the calculus in their head, Pete, too. It's like, okay, for $22 million more, how much more are we getting in Cody Bellinger out in center field than, Pete Crow Armstrong? Okay, we're getting 10 more home runs and whatever slash line you want to throw out there. We're getting this much more. Is that really worth? I don't know. Now we're kind of thinking about it. Maybe not.
Because especially the defenses are I think the same between Pete Crow Armstrong and Cody Bellinger. So what you're really looking at is the difference in their offensive production.
Yeah, if you can spend $20 million less and get 80% of the performance, a lot of GMs are going to take that.
And what Boris and Bellinger currently are counting on is that what we saw from PCA at the end of the year, when he wasn't getting consistent playing time and David Ross was not going to play him, is what he's going to be. And nobody believes that. Nobody believes that the 18 at-bats that he got at the end of the year last year are indicative of what his future career is. If I'm Cody Bellinger, I don't want him to realize that potential right now. I want to sign that contract and get there so that they send Pete Crow Armstrong back down to Iowa. Because every day that he has a chance to prove himself is another $1 million off of Bellinger's salary.
I say something like this is going to end up being something that you guys are going to shake your head at. Like, you're going to be buying your Cody Bellinger jersey this year, and it's going to say Minnesota Twins or some bullshit on there in the front that you never would have expected because it drug on so long. He's going to be with a team. You're like, that doesn't make any sense. The player looks weird in that uniform. He shouldn't have been there in the first place. I won't laugh. I will. I'll probably laugh about that.
Yeah, you will.
My son brought up a really good point the other night. I got to concede it to him for his much shit I think as Cardinal fans have given the Cardinals for making early moves in the offseason. They did jump on some things early. Doesn't mean they couldn't have done more. They don't look quite as dumb as I think a lot of people thought they did. Getting, regardless of the names, they got a couple three durable starters to plug into that rotation, which they badly needed to correct. They did it early in the offseason, and largely they've avoided this kind of bullshit late in the offseason heading into camp. Now, could they have done more? Of course, we all have an opinion on that. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. But if they wouldn't have done anything, just imagine what the story would be right now. So they did grab guys that a lot of other teams probably wouldn't have. A lot of fans would have written them off. But they did make early moves. I do give credit to that because it would be a much more horrible situation had they not. At least they did it early. I don't know what they would have done if they would have waited.
Yeah, I agree. But, ultimately, the performance during the season is going to determine whether or not they made smart moves or not.
Of course, yeah. I mean, right. These guys could repeat. If two of the three repeated of what they did last year, yeah, it won't be great, but they're also 1-year deals. So, right. It can only be so much damage. Sonny Gray's the one.
They're all flippable.
The Sonny Gray's the one you're counting on. And that's only a 3-year commitment too. So it's not like anything was, multiple years and huge dollars here. But right. I am kind of thankful, I guess. What part of me still gives a shit that they did do this early. Yeah, and that's
Ron, what's it going to take? What kind of start is it going to take from the Cardinals in order to re-engage your interest?
Well, I don't know, Pete. I've been thinking about this a bit, right? As little as I've I don't know. I've just gotten. This is a hard one to describe, and we were talking about it before we hit the button tonight too. What has happened with fans like us and kind of our waning interest a little bit? Elliot, you weren't on before we were chatting about this. Maybe you're in a different boat, but if I was a player over 30 and you were looking at my slash line every year and you're seeing it start to trend down, I think mine started doing that a few years ago. Just interest level in the game, how much time I'm willing to spend watching it, how enthusiastic I am about it. It has obviously trended downward. It's been a struggle. Off season used to be interesting, and I think because of I've lost interest in the way the game has been played. Obviously, that's not helped. I think the way the off season has played out too hasn't helped at all, Pete. It's just not as exciting as I feel like it had been in the past. I know we've had a couple of like winter meetings that had some action and we were able to talk about things. But then you got stuff like this. We're talking about multiple players here who haven't signed anywhere, and it just feels like repetitive. We're on this hamster wheel talking about this stuff every year. I don't know what it's going to take for them to re-engage me. I'm not sure, but I will tell you what I am engaged in. City starts on Saturday, 2/24. I am pumped for that. Which is nuts, man. You've known me for a very, very long time. Like, I'm more looking forward to the MLS season starting than I am the baseball season starting. Is that not absolutely batshit crazy?
That's crazy.
But it's the truth, man. It is the total truth.
Yeah, I think the way that the off seasons have gone for the last couple of years, and maybe it has to do with the investment we feel like our teams have made into them, has waned. So then our interest level in the team has also waned. I mean, for me, like I feel where you're at, Ron. There are a lot of these young players that I am excited to see. I don't know, how much you pay attention to the Cardinals, AAA, AA affiliates. But I don't know of very many guys that are maybe exciting that are coming up. I mean, I look at the Fangraphs top 100, and the Cubs have 7 in there, and I'm like, that's great. I mean, 7 guys in the top 100 players coming up. I'm excited to see some of these guys.
I'm probably a bit jaded by that kind of stuff though, because the Cardinals at times have up to like 8 or 9 guys that were talked about in various top 100 lists, and I don't recall the names. And I don't recall the names, Elliot, because nothing ever really happened.
Right.
Obviously, somebody like Jordan Walker is a little bit of an exception, right? But jury's still out. He's in his sophomore year. We'll see. But I think I've just been jaded by that hype over prospects. I've been there, and I've seen it not work out more than I have seen it work out. And but I think you're right. I think that's part of it. The other part of it, and this is weird, the other part of it is I believe that I was actually a better baseball fan before social media engagement with the sport. I actually think that I was better off then. And Pete, when we started this first couple of years, we weren't active on social media. We would post up shows or whatever to Facebook, but we were not tracking it, following it, looking, hey, who liked that? We were peering in at downloads every once in a while, but we weren't really engaged with other fans. And I think until we took that step, might have been like 2018, 2019, really cool at first, and I've really soured on it. I think being exposed to more of the extreme fan that exists on X and exists on Facebook, I think being exposed to all that extremism in terms of fandom has actually turned me off to the game. I think that's been part of it. And I was thinking, this is part of what I've been considering and thinking about. I think I'm tired of listening to it. I'm tired of listening to the same old talking points, the same old things people bitch about, the same old things people get hyped about. Elliot, one of them is prospects. The better guy, that 30-year-old should be dead. This next guy coming up, so-and-so, this hot prospect he's the next answer, God send, right? I'm going to change my Twitter handle name to this guy's name. I'm just like, I think I've just been fed up with the whole fandom, my own mainly, right? So for the longest, I unmuted a lot of Cardinal baseball fans. I do this every year. It's my annual tradition. When the season ends, I mute every one of them because I don't want to hear it. But I haven't been on X too much, but I unmuted literally for hours, Elliot, and it was just like, I got not drawn back in. I got disgusted by the same old shit that I see all the time. Mm-hmm. The fans that everything the Cardinals do is great, and then the ones that everything the Cardinals do I hate, and I want the 80s Cardinals back. That kind of shit is what I
don't want the 80s Cardinals back.
or the 2000s Cardinals, right? Like, or the La Russa Cardinals, let's call them that. I think the exposure to fans that live on X, which are not casual, they're not. It's very much like politics. The ones that are talking on platforms like X are the extreme right, extreme left. It's no different for sports. They're the same ones. Yeah. And that's who you hear. And I've just been overexposed to it. And it's turned me off to things. It has me actually rooting against the team on occasion, or rooting against the prospect on occasion, because I've seen this asshole bring up this prospect so many times that I'm like, good, I hope you fucking get sent back down. Like, it's nuts to think that way, but you do. Yeah.
And I think the other thing for me, and we've talked about this a lot before, is the over analysis of the game, and it's crept into all other sports, right? And there's no putting that genie back in the bottle, but it almost feels like you're not rooting for players anymore. You're rooting for a video game.
You're rooting
right?
for your opinion to be right.
Yeah. And because they're so reduced to numbers, right? Like, all the probabilities and everything, and you're not actually rooting for this human being to achieve something extraordinary, right? Something that it would normally, you would expect to be out of their capabilities, to rise to the occasion, right? Mm-hmm. Because that against soft tossing lefties, who can't get the ball down in the zone, he hits 438 with an 850 slug. Like, that he's got this moment, right? We didn't used to know that. We just used to know that we really hoped that the guy made contact with the ball and kept the line moving. And we don't have that anymore because our expectation is, I know what he's going to do against this guy.
Yeah, and it's crept. It's crept into the world.
And they
Go ahead,
provide
Elliot.
that information to you in the corner sometimes, depending on who you're watching. If you're watching ESPN, or if you're watching, like, Apple TV is really good at this, where they put the expected swing rate or expected hit rate in this situation with this count against this type of pitcher, sort of thing. So,
and this gets back to the point. This gets back to the point that we've made I don't know how many times. All these advanced analytics, the one thing that they can't do is they can't tell a story.
No.
And that's what I love about the old statistics. Yes, I know pitcher wins is overrated and it doesn't really tell you anything. And RBIs are more an element of chance than anything else. But still.
Or the success of the guys that are ahead of you. Right.
Right. When I see batting average, home runs, RBIs, pitcher wins, strikeouts, complete games, that tells a story. Mm-hmm. That tells me a story about that pitcher. That tells me the story about that hitter. If you tell me that Christopher Morel has a 105 WRC plus, and you also tell me that Nick Madrigal has a 105 WRC plus, that doesn't tell me anything. All that tells me is that they're both equally better than an average player. But they play two completely different games. Those numbers don't tell the story.
No,
that's the thing too. Batting average is always a fun one for me. Because that's, hey, if you made contact, how many times did you get on base safely? Right. That's
because ultimately, isn't that the point of the game?
No,
is to hit the ball.
It
is.
The
point of the game is not to walk.
Well, it is. But people forget about that. Whenever you try to make a batting average, when you I like a guy who makes contact, and you'll get some smart ass that'll shoot back at you. So you value a single over a home run, which is a dumb argument. No, of course not. But
they're both hits.
Here you go. They're both hits, and so they'll say, well, batting average only tells you what happened. Yeah.
That's all I want to know.
Yeah, it does tell you what happened. It tells you somebody made contact, and they got on base safely, which that used to be a pretty valuable thing. I mean, unless you weren't a fan of Tony Gwynn, he's a pretty shitty player, huh?
All right.
Losing interest. That's all I can say. And I don't know how long it'll last, but I have not. This is not we didn't agree to get back on here to bash baseball. I predict at some point in time on a Sunday or a Saturday, get back into MLB.TV, but it's the first time in 12 years I haven't renewed it. And it's all about, it's time cost, not the price of it. It's time cost for me. I spent so little time last year watching it because I wasn't willing to give up what little free time I had to sit there and watch it. And why would I feel any different going into this year? So I'll spend $150 on something else. I might cave. I might cave in May, June, whatever. And I'll be called a bandwagon fan, or next week, right?
Well, the spring training game should be free, so I think you might be there.
They can stay free, and I'm still probably not going to watch any of them. Yeah.
All right. So then let's look ahead to brighter days.
New uniforms?
We've got something else that we can bitch about in a little bit, but let's look ahead to brighter days.
Sure.
Rob Manfred has announced that this will be his last term. He's done as commissioner in 2029, I think it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
I believe so, yeah.
Yep. That's what I read.
Some optimism that maybe somebody who actually likes the game will be in charge in 5 years.
I hope so.
It'll be interesting to break down his history and his impact that he's had on it. Maybe I should just save it for then. I do think it's time for. I wish it was happening sooner.
Same.
This guy is hated by. I mean, if you heard the MLB draft last year, they have it on MLB Network every year. I switched to YouTube TV. They don't carry MLB Network, but I haven't missed a fucking lick of it. I can tell you that right now. Add the E to the podcast. First one we dropped tonight. Told you I was going to improve this year. If you heard the way he got booed at the draft last year, like
it was awesome.
I don't know how. Yeah, I mean, he played it off. Like, I give him credit. Like he sort of kept bearing. But yeah, he was getting relentlessly booed at the draft last year. who knows? We'll have to, if we're still doing this in 2029, we'll have to have a postmortem on the impact he's had on the sport. Look, I don't know anybody else in that position what they could have done, a lot differently besides some of the stupid rule changes. I don't hate all of them, but some of them I do. But this is social media age where you're going to get flamed no matter what you do, no matter what decision you make. If you decide to revert back to the things that we all prefer, since we're in our 40s, well, two of us are in our 40s. If you try to step back, into the way things were, you get relentlessly booed by the younger crowd who likes the changes. So I don't know that it just seems like commissioner of baseball. What an unappealing job to have, I think, in this day and age. What do you do?
Don't know. I mean, with the way that the decisions that he's made with baseball and the comments that he's just made about baseball, like, I can't believe he wants to do another term, honestly.
It's kind of surprising. If there's any indictment on how deaf you might be to the game, it's got to be the change in just the way that players are going to appear, which might be a topic, Pete, you're saving for later. That's one that I would think somebody's in tune with things and cares about keeping the sport interesting, that you would avoid things like what just happened with the jersey changes. But if you're going to talk about that later, I'll wait. We can talk about Manfred a little bit more if you'd like.
No, we don't have to.
That should be.
I'm just looking forward to him being gone. I'm curious. Not curious. I'm nervous about who ultimately gets hired as the next commissioner, because obviously we know the commissioner works for the owners.
Yeah.
Right. As much as we hold him up as an individual, he does the owner's bidding. He can't do anything without their approval. So, all of these changes that he's implemented, all of the things that have driven us nuts over the years have all been with the approval of the owners. So this doesn't entirely fall on him, but I would certainly like to see somebody who has the best interests of baseball and who stands up to the owners the way that, that Kennesaw Landis and that
I knew you were going to pull that name out of the archive. It's the first one I thought about too.
I mean, he did.
Yeah.
Right. Charlie Comiskey did not want his players banned, and Landis said, I'm doing what's in the best interest of baseball. And, you can go suck it, Charlie.
I feel like Theo Epstein is probably the one person that I feel like would maybe
he'll lose interest after one term.
But in 5 years, I expect he's going to, he's already joined the ownership group with the Red Sox. And I would imagine that the Nashville team or one of the other expansion teams that comes before Manfred steps down is going to have Theo Epstein in the group. And is he really going to step away from ownership in order to be commissioner? I just don't see it.
Yeah, and Costas is unfortunately probably aged out by 2029, right? But that was always...
You know what? I don't want Costas.
You don't?
No, I don't want him in charge of baseball.
Okay.
I don't.
I think he's aged out. I think it's past that time. If it would have happened, it should have happened a while ago.
Yeah,
I agree. All right. And enough Manfred talk. Jerseys. Players are not happy. Doesn't sound like that. I mean, I haven't dove into it much, but the players aren't happy. The fans, at least the ones on social media, are really not happy.
Right.
I would imagine, Elliot, you probably know more about this than Ron or I. So the floor is yours.
I've read a couple articles. This is mostly about the players complaining about it. The biggest issue right now that I've seen is that they've taken away the tailoring of pants for pitchers, and they just only have a couple of different styles that they can choose from. And a lot of the guys are looking to internally with the team somebody that can fix their pants so that they're more comfortable or have more room or whatever. Are they going to check pitchers' pants like they do pine tar on bats? Like, hey, those pants were altered. He's got to leave the game. Right. Yeah. I mean, the big one from Dansby Swanson was, this isn't even Cubby Blue pinstripes. Like, what is this? Somebody needs to get this right. He's like, I don't care if it's more breathable. Make my uniform the way that it looked last year. He's like, the letters are smaller, the numbers are smaller. It just doesn't. It looks like a cheap knockoff to what our uniforms looked like last year.
If you look at side by sides of a lot of them, they do. There's two things that I have a problem with. Big things. The players' names on the back. They're arching the name.
Way too small.
Just stupid, and they're arching them. I had that. I believe in a couple travel teams that I played on, maybe even in Little League. Of course, it was puff letters, so they might as well just introduce puff letters. The other thing is home whites are no longer white; they're an off-white.
No, they're an off-white. They look terrible.
And that's like, why would you? I don't know. Look, there's Fanatics that's making. I don't know if this is Fanatics or not, because Fanatic is making the jerseys for fans, people that are going to buy them. Nike is the one, they won the Major League contract, right? Like Majestic used to make them. Now it's Nike. So I don't know who's behind the changes, but I have to look at Nike and go, what the fuck are you doing? Like, who?
Well, you know that some color guy with Nike or Fanatics or whoever was
you mean like a CMF guy, not a color guy, like a CMF,
right.
Like in chart. Okay, gotcha. Like an industrial designer or something like that.
Industrial designer,
graphics designer,
hey,
right?
Why don't we just take the home whites and just make them just a little bit different to kind of spice it up a little bit?
Soften it up to more of an earth tone white, an eggshell. Yeah.
There's nothing better for when these guys run out on their home field with those fucking bright white ass uniforms. Stop it. Somebody just got way too detailed.
Well, I think whenever you take over something from somebody else, you always want to put your stamp on it, right? Like we got this thing, now we're going to put our Nike stamp on it. Because Majestic, they're old, they're the old guy in the room. Like we're coming in new blood.
New age. Let's bring them into the Nike.
Whenever you have a leadership change in a company and organization, what's the first thing they want to do? Oh, let's change the logo. Let's change the tagline. Let's do all kinds of other new things so we can put our stamp, because we know better, right? We're new blood. We're going to breathe new life into this thing, because baseball's suffering. It's a distant second to the NFL. So we got to get better. So let's go with a bone white. For home uniforms, that'll get fans fired up. Let's make the letters smaller, and let's stretch Goldschmidt to where it's halfway down the 3, and the others, by the time you get to the T in the last part of his name, it's halfway down the 5, and it's a nice arch. No, it looks stupid, and you're right. It does look like a knockoff. If you look at side-by-side images of this stuff, it looks like a cheap knockoff jersey.
Yeah, the only time that you're supposed to arch the jersey, you ask any uniform manager, and the only time you're supposed to arch the name is when the name is too big to fit on the back.
Saltalamacchia.
Saltalamacchia, right? Crow Armstrong. Those names are too long. You have to arch it. But Goldschmidt, you can fit that on the jersey.
Fit for years on him already. Right.
It's fine.
No, in Verlander,
it ain't broke.
Verlander's another picture that's out there too. Or picture that's out there that you see last year's shirt, this year's shirt of him in spring training, and it looks ridiculous. So, yeah, not a fan of the change in uniform. Not a fan of. I don't know. There's deeper details in the Cardinals where their logo and things are less like pronounced and proud, meaning proud of the surface of the jersey. The St. Louis Birds on a Bat logo was always kind of out. It was embroidered, so it sat outside of the fabric, and it was kind of noticeable. It just doesn't appear to have that same kind of impact, that contrast that it had in years prior. So they suck. I mean, based on what I've seen, images, I haven't seen one up close. I haven't had one in my hands, but they look like shit.
And the only thing that's going to get through to them, and I hope that enough fans are of this opinion, the only thing that's going to get through to them is if jerseys don't sell.
Well, that's part of the problem why they're not going to change this right away, because manufacturers are, Fanatics is already pumping out jerseys in advance of the season.
So Elliot, you cannot buy that new Matt Chapman jersey when he signs. You just cannot.
But think about the Dodgers fans who cannot buy an Ohtani jersey. In the lettering they're used to, they have to have this stupid arched Ohtani name.
But they could have. See, they've had 2 months to buy their jersey.
Yeah,
because they could have gotten the old one. They could have gotten it for Christmas.
Could they have?
Had the custom jersey made with the old stuff before it rolled out.
Yeah, but not to the masses. They're never going to be able to buy one.
You're right.
And because you said genie out of the bottle, so you've already taken that You've already taken that one,
You
right?
can use it again.
The tube is out of the toothpaste is out of the tube at this point.
The horse is out of the barn.
Horse is out of the barn.
Yeah, there you
Ship
go.
has sailed.
Elliot, you want to contribute anything?
I'm good. You guys got it.
All right.
Anyway, so what about the toothpaste and the tube?
I mean, whatever's going to be in the team stores for fans is already on its way. It's already there. Like they can't pull the plug on it. Oh, you're right. Yeah, fans are really, this is a lot of backlash. We gotta revert back, and they're not going to be able to do that because this stuff's already out there. So too late.
Yeah, I mean, additional SKUs. I mean, there's a lot of work that would have to go into reversing.
Did they do any research?
single
Like, did they
piece.
do like a consumer panel or a focus group on this stuff? Did they do anything like that?
Who knows?
Was it only like young people that didn't know any better and like, oh, those look great?
Have you seen the University of Oregon's football jerseys over the last 20 years? Nike clearly does not do. They're at the point now, they own, their market cap is so big that they clearly just do what they want and they don't care. They've just gotten, I think they've gotten arrogant, right? Like,
too big to fail mentality.
yeah, and also I think that they pushed the envelope with Jordan, and people just loved Michael Jordan and loved Jordans so much that they could get crazy in their designs, and people snapped them up. And I think that they thought that translated to everything,
Yeah.
and it doesn't. I don't think it does.
You know, I really love the Will has got him three, almost 4 years in a row. I think 4 years in a row. Once we get him another pair, he's picked Mike Trout shoes every year for baseball. They are the most plain thing, about like his personality. The shoes match it completely, and they're just white and gray. And he loves them. So they haven't failed on that line. Well, they probably have with, the in crowd, but it's not like the Bryce Harper Under Armour, with glitter.
Right.
Yeah.
And I did take Sam to get a pair of shoes. His, spring's starting up here already. He really loved these ones, but they only had them they only had a certain color in his size. She brings them out. They're mostly white. He just wanted white cleats, and they're Under Armour, and they are just full of sparkles on the top, like sparkly material. He's like, I can't wear those to practice. I'm like, I understand. How about these Mike Trout shoes? These are very fly under the radar. No sparkles whatsoever. I mean, you look like you went to a strip club in those shoes. Are you looking them up right now, Pete? Because
No.
The internet won't do any justice, man. You got to hold them in your hands.
So did they
You're gonna have to
smell
get
like
us some pictures.
baby powder?
He didn't buy them. He was worried about. He was worried about going to. I think in his words, going to ballet practice at. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the jersey conundrum. It's not looking good.
All right, so Ron, obviously spring training started. Games are around the corner. Start of the season's not too far away. What's, as things stand now, assuming that the Cardinals are done adding and that the people in camp, 26 of them are going to break and head north. What's your biggest area of concern right now with the Cardinals?
I don't know that I have any one biggest area. I mean, obviously it's going to be pitching. So to, flip a quarter, it's either starting rotation or it's the bullpen. They have brought in a couple. I think they signed a guy from Tampa. I don't recall the name. Made another minor signing. So they've tried to throw some numbers at the bullpen. But that's always an area of concern. I think it all comes down to the starting pitching. I think whatever happens in the bullpen will be reflective of what happens in the rotation. If they can't get through 4, if they have a bunch of injuries, you're going to feel that impact in the bullpen. So I'd say, Pete, it still comes down to the starting rotation, which I think is in a little bit better position than it was in prior years, because there are, at least on paper right now, 5 guys that stay relatively healthy. We all know baseball, right? That can change quick on you. I think it comes down to that. I don't think there's anything on the offensive or defensive side I've got too many concerns on. Yeah, I think Mason Wynn will get a. It's his job to lose early on. I think starting shortstop, which will push Tommy Edman to center field, which sounds crazy, but athletically and with his baseball smarts, I mean, why not take a Gold Glove infielder and push him to the outfield? All right, it sounds dumb, but he's probably the best option they have out there. The other option is obviously a better defensive center fielder in Dylan Carlson, but he swings an extremely light John Jay bat from the left and a high school version of Dustin Pedroia from the right. So that's what's missing with him. I think they've got enough ability offensively. I think that area is okay. It comes down to the starting rotation. If it falls to shit again, we're going to be in the same boat. With that said, this is a team that, while can compete for the National League Central, if they happen to finish on top, fine. I just don't think there's enough horsepower there to get past round one in the postseason. I think that's where we're at, which is where I feel like we've been at several years in a row now. I expect a better year than last year. I don't know how you could get any worse. So maybe that's a light statement, but it's a team that's built to contend maybe, but not like contend in a deep way, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Elliot? What's your one pain point when it comes to the Cubs heading into the year right now, if things remain as they stand?
The high corners. Third base, first base right now. I mean, I know we've got this guy that we traded for, Michael Bush, that should be coming up, but it sounds like Joey Council wants
Joey Votto's sitting out there, man. He's just waiting.
I know. I would totally not be opposed to that. I think he would be a great addition to this Cubs team with all the young guys to bring in.
He would be. He would be a guy that just wants to play maybe one more year. A little bit of adrenaline going through him. I think it would be veteran presence for a lot of young players.
Yeah,
it'd be a good move.
Is his agent Scott Boras? Is that why he hasn't signed with anybody?
I don't think it is. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think you're right. I don't think it is.
He'd be a guy that would represent himself and really not have an agent.
Or he'd have somebody like in a clown outfit, like walk into the meeting. Yeah.
But like I was saying, it sounds like Craig Counsell wants Christopher Morel to work out the entire spring training at third base, which would put him in the lineup. So then who do we have DH at that point? There's going to be a platoon of guys. Maybe it's some of the young guys that might break out with the team. But yeah, right now my concern is first base and third base to kind of see where we're going.
Yeah, I would hate it. But I think Joey Votto would do well there in just a own little personal swan song and you get a well-known veteran, former All-Star name like that, putting on a Cubs uniform for just 1 year. I think it would be a really smart move on their part.
Transitioning him from Cincinnati, the small city, to Chicago, the big city, where
he's not going to be fazed by any of that.
No. I'm just saying. I just think it would be awesome because more of baseball fans will get more of him, and I think he's just a great player.
Or he's going to be like he finally goes to a big place and is like, "Fuck, I should have done this like 10 years ago."
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I think it'd be great
because that Skyline Chili is not that damn good, Joey. We know that.
I love that stuff.
It's not that great. It's okay.
Yeah, I get to introduce the boy to that. I don't know if I told you guys this. His big Christmas present for me this year was he got to choose. So on back-to-back series, the Cubs are going to be in Kansas City and then Cincinnati. And so I told him, I said, you get to make the choice. We're either taking the train to Cincinnati or we're taking the train to Kansas City. And he chose Cincinnati.
Did he?
Oh, nice.
He did.
He did. Kansas City is I've always enjoyed Kauffman Stadium.
I was really hoping that he would pick Kansas City.
Yeah.
I feel like there's more to do. I mean, if you wanted to take the train, there's a more regular train schedule to Kansas City. Yeah. But it felt like there were more options in Kansas City beyond just the baseball.
Yeah, I would have opted. I would have tried to push him subtly in that direction. Like
I tried.
Yeah.
Believe me, I tried.
It's Cincinnati.
But nope, he's decided on Cincinnati. So
I've been to Cincinnati quite a few times. Great American Ballpark is very nice.
It's nice, yeah.
I'm looking forward to finally seeing it.
There is actually quite a bit to do. Go to the boathouse on the river and have dinner at Montgomery Inn on the river. It's fantastic. Grab a Coney dog from Skyline Chili. I love this stuff, but if you've never had it, just try it.
It's the same thing as like meatballs to IKEA. Everybody talks about them. You get them, you're like,
right.
What?
Completely overrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the half smoke in Washington D.C. at National Stadium. It's fine.
It's good.
If you want a day with some roller coasters and stuff like that, go up to Kings Island, just north of the city.
No, he's not a roller coaster guy.
Okay,
not yet.
It's kind of like
he's trains. I've already found like 5 or 6 things that are related to trains that he will totally be in.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then we'll catch a baseball game, and then haven't decided if we're going to either drive home or fly home. I mean, it's only 5 hours, so it's not like it's a terrible drive, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And technically, you fly out of Kentucky, Cincinnati Airport in Kentucky.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know. Makes total sense.
Yep.
I think there's 2 of them like next to each other, right?
Yeah, they're pretty close.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's disappointing. Maybe next year you can get it. Kansas City is a good place to visit. I would have.
Yeah, I know.
I would have pushed
we'll see what next year's. I was really disappointed because I started thinking about this as
you should drive him to PNC next year because that's one we all want to go to that we haven't yet. I would try to. I'd try to push him in the Pittsburgh direction next year.
So that was the thing, right? As soon as they released the calendar, I actually started looking at it because I had this in mind. And it just doesn't align. Like the Cubs schedule this year just does not work. July is obviously optimal because then I can go any time of the month, right? It doesn't have to be on a weekend. It can be on a weekday, which is actually when we're going to be in Cincinnati. The Cubs series is a Monday, Wednesday series.
I'll be at that series at the end of July.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
My family and I were all going to Cincinnati as a huge family vacation to go see the Cubs play in Cincinnati, and then we're going to go to Kings Island. We're going to get a big Airbnb.
You guys should take that train down to St. Louis on May 11th. Chicago Fires at City Park. That'd be a nice.
We've done that already. If you
haven't been to City Park.
No, you're right. We haven't. But I did. I looked at. I was hoping that I could find other options, and these literally were the only 2 options that I had. None of the other ones would work out. It was ridiculous, and I was looking at everything. And it's all the compelling series were in May and June, and I can't get away for that amount of time in May and June because that's those are a couple of my busiest months at school.
Mm-hmm.
And then school starts up again in August, and again I can't get away. So
you really only have 2 months to look at then, which is
exactly,
which is really like 4 weekends.
And the away series that were happening, were just either they were in Chicago or who they were going to be playing during those 6 or so weeks just wasn't compelling. Just wasn't worth planning that trip. So
it's like, hey, do you want to take an 8-hour train ride to go see the Marlins?
Exactly. No, 2 days. It would take 2 days to get to Miami. We would fly for that one.
Yeah.
And that would be part of a much larger trip, right? Like you're not going down to Florida just for the Marlins.
Hell no.
Now, I could see him totally getting excited about. Now here's what we could do. We could fly into Miami, catch the Marlins game, and then take the Bright Line up to Orlando. He's completely obsessed with that one, right? This privately operated train between Miami and Orlando and eventually Tampa. He would be fine with that. That would be a trip.
Go to Legoland up there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But again,
which is kind of cool.
Doesn't work.
Yeah.
Anyway, is there anything else to talk about? I mean, besides Sydney Sweeney's assets, but we promised that we weren't going to get you guys in trouble.
Yeah, let's go.
For those of you who are wondering, Ron finally discovered Sydney Sweeney's People's Choice of Land.
People's Choice Awards tonight. It was on in the living room, and I'm like, I've been in the dark, man. I don't know about anybody. As far as pop culture, guys, I'm at my all-time low on keeping up with anything. I don't know people's names. I don't know who's popular, who's not. No clue. And found out tonight.
Congratulations.
Ron, do you have Max?
I do.
So she was on Euphoria.
I don't know what that is.
It was a show that she was on. You'll
I
want to look that up.
I watched True Detectives and Real Time as the only two.
Well, I don't know that
Bill Maher has ever brought up Sydney Sweeney. No, I don't think so.
I'm sure he hasn't. I don't know. You might have to. You might have to. I don't even know how to say it. Right?
Yeah, let's not say it.
She's on Euphoria.
Okay.
Just look that up.
Okay. Gotcha. All right.
Yeah, she's on Euphoria.
He's rubbing his sweat off his forehead.
Yeah.
Dirty Old Men. Show title.
Showtime, yeah.
And then there's another one. I think it's called The Voyeurs. I don't know if that's on Max, but that's another movie that she was in that you might want to
wait till Sarah goes to bed.
Yeah. Yeah. But not too long after she goes to bed, because
well,
you might want her up for that.
No. We've arrived at that point in life. Nobody cares anymore. Anyway, probably a good time to check out. Walk us out of here.
Yeah, before we dig an even deeper hole for ourselves.
Yeah, we have. Might have to do some significant editing on this one.
That's right. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to leave a comment and subscribe. And if you want to help spread the word, please give us a 5-star review and tell your friends to do the same. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. We also occasionally live stream, although obviously not tonight, on Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube. You can find Elliot on X at
TOR_Elliot.
And you can find Ron at
TOR_Ron75.
Get in touch with us at any social media channel at Team of Rivals Pod. And look, if your wife, significant other, child is suddenly scandalized by the content at the end of tonight's episode, you can just blame it on old Uncle Pete. That dirty old man.
Had to bring
the
it
only
up.
one on the show who's 50 and is single. It's his fault.
We've all been single multiple times. This is an exclusive
100%.
club. Maybe the only podcast that's ever faced this situation, but I think it's great. All right, Pete, thanks for taking us out. I can't promise anything. I can't promise we'll be back next week. Can't promise we'll be back in sometime late in spring training. We'll pick it, but I don't know. We'll take things seriously when we need to. We'll get back into the swing of things, I think. And if not, then we'll change our genre up. We'll get Pete back on Disney Plus or something else, or maybe we'll just have a Sydney Sweeney podcast every week breaking down whatever. All right. Until then, we love you all so much. Bye-bye, everyone.